starting off with questions from MP Veronica Janssen-Webster. Regarding accreditation, does the Minister have a list of accreditation institutions already? The Department of Education conducted research in collaboration with USM and AUC towards an accreditation framework, where several models of accreditation were considered, including government-controlled accreditation, private accrediting bodies, a hybrid approach, and self-regulation. The pros and cons of each model were considered, and based on the research outcome, the hybrid approach was chosen, allowing for government oversight through independent accreditation bodies. The Ministry will play a key role in defining criteria for the recognition of these accreditation bodies, ensuring that they possess the necessary expertise, adhere to recognized quality assurance standards, and maintain transparency. Independent accreditation agencies will be rigorously evaluated based on standards such as governance, adequate resources, and continuous quality assurance processes, aligning with international benchmarks. The Ministry will ensure these agencies meet specified standards by setting clear evaluation criteria. These include well-defined governance, transparency in reporting, collaboration with stakeholders, equitable decision-making, and adherence to international standards. Agencies must also undergo regular self-evaluations and external reviews to ensure their processes and outcomes align with global accreditation standards. There is a preliminary list of agencies that were recommended during the research. However, the process of establishing the list of accreditation bodies in a national decree is ongoing and will be concluded after the Higher Education Ordinance is established. Question 2 from MP Janssen-Webster. Does the Minister have accreditation with the Dominican Republic or other Latin countries? Will they also be accredited? The accreditation framework does not specifically list an accreditation agency within the Dominican Republic. However, it does provide guidelines to evaluate such institutions to ensure that they meet the minimum standards to assess the quality of higher education programs in St. Martin. Moving on to questions from MP Lyndon Lewis. Why was the academic year changed to September 1st to August 31st? The Department of Education consulted verbally with USM to confirm the start and end of the academic year prior to finalizing the Note of Aanwijziging, and it was understood that the institution's academic year was from September 1st to August 31st. However, that appeared to be a misunderstanding. Given that USM has since indicated a preference for August 1st to July 31st, and it is customary for some institutions to begin in either August or September, it is recommended that the law make mention of both to allow for adjustments in practice as may be necessary. The definition of the academic year was added to the draft ordinance for transparency, since there is a need for a clear distinction between the academic year and the financial calendar year. Question 2. Were discussions held on the proposed changes before placed in the draft, or was it a decision made and mandated? Following the deliberations between the Ministry of ECYS and Parliament, the Department of Education and the SG of ECYS engaged in consultations with USM regarding points of concern, which USM tabled to Parliament regarding the draft law. USM also met with the then Minister of ECYS at the time. A Note of Aanwijziging was drafted considering concerns of USM, and the note was approved by the COM and presented to Parliament on September 18, 2025. A proposal for a second Note of Aanwijziging was not approved as it was deemed not necessary. The proposed changes related to the following 3 points. 1, including the names of AUC and USM in the draft law. 2, changing financial reporting to the calendar year instead of academic year. And 3, adding in consultation with the institution to the text related to establishing the height of tuition fees for funded institutions. As indicated during my last visit to Parliament, the names of AUC and USM are not included in the draft ordinance as the government has chosen to regulate higher education on a whole and not any single institution for the sake of fairness, legal flexibility, and considering international best practices. AUC and USM are, however, named in the current draft Memorie van Toelichting. In addition, the financial reporting by the calendar year was not approved because annual and financial reporting are to be done by academic year in accordance with the manner in which funding is being made available. Lastly, the consultation process is a critical part of the process of establishing any legislation and regulation, and therefore stating in consultation with the institution is redundant and was deemed not necessary. The Ministry and USM have been engaged in consultations regarding these matters throughout the legislative process and extensively on a number of occasions since the draft ordinance has been presented to Parliament. I firmly believe, as Minister of ECYS, that this draft ordinance currently before Parliament sufficiently addresses the 3 points of concern mentioned above and allows for the further positive development of higher education on St. Martin. Question 3. Once approved, what is the transition period to allow existing institutions to adhere to the requirements? Has it been specifically stipulated? The Higher Education Ordinance includes provisions for a transition period to allow existing institutions to adapt. Specifically, institutions already offering higher education programs at the time of enactment will have time to apply for ministerial recognition. They must submit their application for recognition within 6 weeks of the law coming into effect. Until the minister evaluates and decides on these applications, institutions can continue issuing diplomas, titles, and degrees. However, I want to make it clear that this minister will evaluate and decide within a reasonable timeline once applications have been received. Question 4, was impact considered and discussed? The impact of these changes was carefully considered and shaped through stakeholder engagement before the law itself was finalized. Moving on to questions from MP Ludmila De Wever. Why are AUC and USM not listed? As mentioned, AUC and USM are named in the current draft Memorie van Toelichting. For the sake of fairness, legal flexibility, and considering international best practices, they were not named in the draft ordinance. And I would also like to point to the example of Curaçao, where the university was listed in the ordinance, and then later on it was removed to allow for that legal flexibility that I speak of. Question 2, what is the role of NEPA here in this legislation? The National Institute for Professional Advancement, NEPA, operates within the framework of the National Ordinance on Secondary Vocational Education and Training, offering courses equivalent to international standard classification of education levels 3 and 4, which are distinct from higher education, which encompasses international standard classification of education levels 5 to 8. Therefore, there is no role for NEPA in this particular legislation. Moving on to questions from MP Doran. What are the thoughts of the ministry on enhancing the level of the NEPA in regard to this law? What are we doing to bring NEPA to this level? As I mentioned in my presentation, Madam Chair Lady, NEPA is an autonomous foundation that provides advanced vocational education, with its program regulations outlined in the National Ordinance on Secondary Vocational Education and Training, Secundair Beroepsonderwijs, SBO. The statutes of NEPA also designates it as an SBO institution. If the NEPA would in the future like to transition into a higher education institution, it must align its regulatory standards and operations with the requirements established in the draft Higher Education Ordinance. Moving on to questions from MP La Cruz. NEPA and SMMC are giving a nursing course. SMMC nurses cannot study at NEPA. Can the minister look into this? I'd like to state, Madam Chair Lady, through you to the MP, I've personally heard a variety of concerns expressed by participants of this course and can state that the ministry itself was not aware of these and is looking into the matter. I am happy to provide further information to the MP and subsequently to Parliament in writing once we have ascertained what the issues are and identified a way forward. Moving on to questions from MP Artwell Arian. What measures are included to support technological advancements in education now and in the future? Currently, the draft Higher Education Ordinance allows institutions to offer digital and remote education, facilitating hybrid learning models and international collaborations to enhance technological integration in higher education. Additionally, data-driven quality assurance is mandated, requiring institutions to use self-assessments and analytics to improve educational standards. For the future, policies encourage the expansion of fully online degree programs and AI-driven personalized learning to enhance accessibility and innovation. Furthermore, big data and predictive analytics are expected to play a larger role in accreditation and student performance monitoring, while international partnerships will continue to support technological adoption and research collaboration. Additionally, as I've mentioned previously, I'm happy to state again that the ministry is in the early stages of establishing an AI in education policy that will provide guidance for educators, students, and parents alike. Question 2. How will the government contribute to the institutions? What financial requirements must institutions meet? Higher education institutions that meet the eligibility requirements detailed in the draft ordinance will qualify for funding. The higher education institutions that qualify for funding will be funded in accordance with regulations established in Articles 93 to 101 of the draft ordinance. Articles 93 to 101 specify the conditions under which funding can be allocated, including accreditation status, the quality of education, and the overall financial management of institutions. The ministry can suspend or withdraw funding if institutions fail to meet necessary standards or misuse the funds. Institutions must submit annual financial reports, undergo audits, and maintain transparency in their operations. Additionally, the ministry is empowered to carry out investigations into the legitimacy of funding usage and can impose penalties if institutions are found to be in violation of the regulations. The articles also outline the process of discontinuing funding, including circumstances like failure to regain accreditation or the improper allocation of resources. Funded institutions must also submit yearly financial and operational reports to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, including a financial statement verified by a certified accountant. The draft ordinance makes it possible for further provisions to be detailed in a national decree, which the ministry is currently working on. The overall goal is to ensure that funding supports high-quality educational outcomes and is used efficiently and in accordance with the law. I would like to also make the following clear, Madam Chair Lady, to the general public and the members of Parliament, that current higher education institutions are not state-owned institutions. Therefore, there's also a responsibility to find supplemental funding on their own as well. Question 3. What are the conditions to public funding and how will compliance be monitored? Higher education institutions seeking public funding must meet specific conditions, including accreditation compliance, so institutions must obtain accreditation from a recognized accreditation body to ensure quality standards. Annual reporting, so institutions must submit yearly financial and operational reports to MECIS, including a financial statement verified by a certified accountant. In addition, every 4 years, institutions must submit a plan for the further development of the institution outlining policies on education quality, faculty development, and institutional investments. Compliance monitoring will include the following. The Inspectorate of Education will conduct regular evaluations to ensure compliance with accreditation and operational requirements. 2, the Minister of Education reviews institutions' financial accountability and may suspend or adjust funding based on compliance. And finally, institutions that fail to meet conditions risk withdrawal of accreditation and public funding.
presentation will begin by addressing one of the most discussed and at times misunderstood matters, the casino operations at Port-au-Plaisance PDP and the Sunset Building. It is important that this Parliament and the public are provided with clarity on the legal and administrative process that were followed, including the distinction between licenses, comfort letters, and amendments. Addressing this upfront ensures we begin with a place of shared understanding before turning to the responses to the broader set of questions submitted by the members of Parliament. This approach reflects our commitment to transparency and ensure that the information shared today speaks not only to the questions posed, but also to the larger need for confidence in how government decisions are made and how policies are enforced. Once again, thank you for your engagement, and we now proceed with a clarity presentation before turning to the individual responses with your indulgence, Madam Chair Lady. I'd like to start with the timeline of Port-au-Plaisance to Sunset. It starts with the letter dated August 10, 2021, to Minister Ludmila de Wever, the then minister, from the Managing Director of Princess Group of Companies. In that letter, the letter requesting confirmation that the casino policy regarding expansion of existing hotel premises will be applied to the hotel at Port-au-Plaisance once PDP Group complies with the requirements indicated in the casino policy rules of game. It went over next to a letter dated September 17th, 20 days or a few days later, 2021, addressed to Minister Roger Lawrence from the Managing Director of Princess Port-au-Plaisance, and the application submitted for a hotel-based casino license under the Port-au-Plaisance, Cottages NV. Next correspondence was a letter dated April 11th, 2022, to the Managing Director of Port-au-Plaisance, Cottages NV, from Minister Roger Lawrence. In his letter, it states that he's embracing the plans to further develop and enhance the entire Port-au-Plaisance property, and in particularly the hotel, and granting pre-approval of the issuance of hotel-based casino license at Union Road, 155 Coal Bay. Then next, there's a letter dated December 21st, 2023, to Minister Arthur Lambry from the Managing Director, Port-au-Plaisance Cottages NV, confirming to the Minister that Port-au-Plaisance Cottages received its building permit number 186/2022 in April 26, 2023. Then there's a letter dated January 8, 2024, to the Managing Director of Port-au-Plaisance Cottages NV from Minister Lambries. In that letter, the letter confirms that Port-au-Plaisance Resort Casino has met all the policy requirements for granting its hotel-based casino license, and informs the license that the license has already been drafted and is ready for signing. Then a letter dated January 2nd, 2022, to my person, Minister Grisha Heiliger Martin, from the Managing Director of Port-au-Plaisance, requesting address change for casino license 1391 and business license under the trade name Princess Casino to the new address 111 Welfare Road, Coal Bay, formerly known as Sunset Building. Then it's followed by a letter and decree dated February 7th, 2025, to the Managing Director of Port-au-Plaisance NV from my person, Minister Grisha Heiliger Martin. The letter informed them that the application for a hotel-based casino has been approved and signed, and a decree to amend the license 1391 in such a way that the casino's address has changed to its new location on Welfare Road, the former Sunset Building. Then another letter dated March 3rd, 2025, to my person, Grisha Heiliger Martin, from the General Manager, Port-au-Plaisance Cottages NV, clarification regarding casino license room requirements for Port-au-Plaisance, confirming the room inventory consists of 133 rooms. Then another letter dated March 11th, 2025, to my person, from the General Manager, update on the steps taken to ensure full compliance within the required time frame outlined in Article 23 of the business license. With that, I hope that it is clear how the process went, and I would like to now start with the questions posed by members of Parliament. The first member of Parliament is MP Lyndon Lewis, who asked about 7 questions, and his line of questioning focused on the adequacy of casino controllers, controller staffing, and shift coverage, and the enforcement of local access restrictions and monitoring system. He also wanted clarity on operational tools, licensing distinctions, and departmental resources. The MP also highlighted his concerns regarding the regulatory enforcement and resources allocation and the effectiveness of oversight mechanism. His inquiries aim to address the efficiency and transparency of casino operation and ensure proper governance within the sector. His first question: are there sufficient number of casino controllers on duty? The casino controller staff numbers are currently undergoing transitional changes. As we transition towards the new regulatory framework, which will be established by the new Games of Chance Ordinance and forthcoming St. Martin Gaming Authority SMGA under the Country Package Measure H2, the focus was on building the modern digital regulatory framework rather than reinforcing an outdated model. Next question, please provide a list of casino controllers on duty. There are currently 35 casino controllers employed. Is the list sufficient to cover the shifts at the casinos and ensure locals are kept out? While there are 35 casino controllers employed, this only provides approximately 85% coverage across required shifts. As for ensuring local residents are restricted, enforcement of this policy has not been feasible due to the manual nature of the monitoring system and the growing volume of casino traffic. This limitation underscores the impact of an upcoming reform, which includes digital tools for better monitoring and enforcement. Are controllers there to protect locals and comply with the time they can enter the casinos? Historically, one of the responsibilities of casino controllers was to monitor and restrict locals' access during specific hours. However, this practice has not been actively enforced for decades, primarily due to inefficiencies of manual verification systems. The draft Games of Chance Ordinance represents a shift from traditional moral policing to a public health-oriented approach, emphasizing the following: promoting awareness of the risk associated with gambling, ensuring casino staffs are trained to identify and respond to signs of problematic gambling behavior, regulating the provision of support services such as counseling for individuals with gambling disorder, and implementing digital tools to support responsible gambling practices, including options for anonymous or track played.
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French sides, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin, to honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity, Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping, cruises, boating, and yachting, twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation, splendid and scenic accommodations, Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
What are some of the foreseeable challenges? Because it is huge if I just look at it and listen to you. So I'm sure in your mind you must have come up, or maybe also on paper, with some of the potential setbacks, challenges, and or pitfalls with respect to the project.
Yes, MP Westcott Williams. Yeah, based on those two, which I also submitted to Parliament, and there then I also need to work, if I may, a quick second. And then you can see the titles, what is Swaliga? That is gives you an, information on what Swaliga Farm entails, how it will be set up, where the concept came about. The interdependencies, the essential factors to consider, the company profile, the project purpose, stakeholders established, the background information, the business objective, benefits and, benefits, limitations and solutions, option and selection, scope and impact of the interdependencies, the project assessment report, project feasibility report, key partners, outline plan, market assessment that will have to be done by a market analyst, which will be part of setting up of the business plan, the risk assessment, project approach, finance of the project, sensitivity analysis, funding, project governance, reporting as well as organization, project organization, how does this project connect to organizational goals and objective, which metrics will be used to measure the success of this project, who is working on the project, when is it expected to be completed, and the action plan. That is all under the business case.
What I'm asking, because I would want to imagine, given that and the many aspects of it, that you would want to have like a third party, a neutral third party, throw a look at it in terms of its feasibility, realiteitsgehalte, you know, so those kind of things, and what could potentially be like a bottleneck that if you don't get across that, then the project can't proceed, you know? So I don't know if you have done that, and maybe that's the result of your business.
If I may, this would be actually the second part of it, because it's a costly investment. It's a research that would cost money. Mm-hmm. Pretty much the information that I have is reliable information, because it's based on whether you go on the websites and get that information, whether you go on other projects that established it likewise. But for you to delve deeper in it, it's going to cost money. And for that, as it is not a private initiative, but rather an initiative that is proposed for government to follow. Where we are at now is to see if government likes the concept, And if government likes the concept, then government says, well, I would like to delve further in it, and then I will come to an agreement with you to delve further in it, and then I would come with a proposal for that to government. But for me to delve into it and not have the security,
That is, okay.
yeah.
Makes sense.
I think the underlying or the main things people look at with such concepts are the costs, right? And I know there hasn't been an extensive study into that as yet, but do you have an idea or a ballpark figure of what something like this would cost?
No, it's pretty much impossible to even have a ballpark figure, because first of all, you need to know what all material is required in order for you to establish it. So what kind of steel are we going to use, how much steel, because we have to anchor it, what type of platform, and once you establish all what is required to establish the farm, and I'm talking basically just the frame, not the request per farmer, because you need to sit down with that farmer also to see what kind of equipment they would need for their type of farming, for you to come at a cost. But when you don't have the cost, you look at other questions to decide whether it's a project that is worth pursuing or not. And with this project, we go, what are the benefits of pursuing this project? First and foremost, to a small step, but it provides some kind of self-reliance, of economic independence for the country and its people. That in itself already is an initiative to look deeper at this. And then obviously cost effective, once you find out is it viable, then only you will pursue it. But in order to find out if a ballpark figure, you need to have, for example, how much pipe do I need, how much body am I going to use of water, and that's only the pipe, not other material and labor. That all needs to be established, and that is not something that I would do, but it's something that would be done through analysts.